I am Jessica. I forgot my name tag.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And this is June. And we'd like to welcome you to the 16th constellation. We're really happy to bring together these readers and also to gather all of you in this room. The audience here with us and also everyone joining us via live stream. Hello. And thank you to each of you for your consideration in honoring our COVID policy and looking out for each other. If you need a mask, there's more on the table. So to acknowledge our current moment and offer a framework, we've adapted some words from a statement originally disseminated by Rawi, the Radius of Arab American Writers. We're still gathering during an active genocide taking place in Gaza. And the current violence in Palestine is the continuation of decades of colonial violence under Israeli apartheid. We stand in solidarity with victims of genocide in Sudan and Congo, and with the indigenous peoples on whose unceded traditional homelands were gathered, including Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, and Watlala Cascade bands of the Chinook, as well as the Tuolumne and Kalapuya, and many other recognized and unrecognized indigenous nations of the Columbia River. We stand firmly against anti-Blackness and recognize that police violence and all white supremacist violence must be named and opposed. These forms of violence, along with transphobic violence being legislated in several US states, endanger the lives of trans, queer, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people. So, as we begin our event, we wish to underscore that none of us are free until all of us are free.
That's right.
And that anti-racist, liberationist, and decolonial struggles are intertwined. We thank the organizers who wrote and disseminated this statement for their labor and ongoing activism. And we have many giving opportunities, and I think this is maybe the time for Junaid to talk a little bit about one that is being generated since last time we met. Yeah.
Hey, you guys. I'm going to say hi, Tamara. Hi, Mandy. I know you're probably not watching this because you don't have good internet, but I love you, and I am invoking you here with us today. I know you love reading, and I know you love books, and you wish you could be here, but you are trying to survive a genocide. So I made some friends from the Gaza Strip, and I love them so much. They're amazing people. It's this family that are from North Gaza in Jabalia, which is one of the places that was first bombed after October 7th. This family's home was bombed and they were displaced. And they're currently separated. They separated the men from the women. And so the father and two sons who are 19 are trapped in Jabalia, which has been completely devastated. There's like nothing there, and they're starving. The women, which is my friend Tamara and her sister Diana, and a little one who's a year and a half, Isla, and their mom are in Deir el-Balah in central Gaza, where they've started a ground invasion. And they want to get out, and they want to rebuild, and they want to survive. So there's also another sister who is medically evacuated to Egypt, and she has been in Egypt, basically held captive in a hospital, in a small room with her 4-year-old son. She's pregnant. They have not been allowed to leave that room for about 2 months. They haven't seen fresh air. They have no toys. She has a phone that's connected to the internet, so she can connect to us. But we're raising money for this family so that when the Rafah border opens, they can leave. The Mandi, who's in Egypt, her husband is in Deir el-Balah in central Gaza, and is trying to get back to them. So we've raised in the last few weeks almost, I think maybe we're at $17,000 for this family. And it's amazing. We're going to have an auction, an online auction on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram or you follow Constellation, I'll be posting there to guide you to this auction. There's some really, really cool stuff, some amazing writers. One writer in our community who's just beloved and amazing, Eric Tran, is donating his time. He's going to evaluate a manuscript and give feedback. It's just really cool stuff. There's like 32 items. Sorry, I'm taking a long time. They want to tell their story. I want to be their voice to the world. You'll see around the building these QR codes and a way to donate. So if you can, even like $5, like there's two numbers we're watching. We're watching the number count in terms of money, and we're watching the number count in terms of how many donors. And every donor is like somebody more who's like, I see you, I'm here with you. You know, I've got $5 for you. And
yeah, I think we've raised a large amount of money from a relatively small number of people. So like that the number of donors really could grow here.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. Thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk so long.
It's good. It's all good. Anyway,
thank you.
You can.
So you'll see these around. Thank you.
And before we do get on to the readings, we want to just always take a moment to thank our partners and hosts and friends, Lance Cleland with Tin House, who I think is not here, maybe, no. And Melissa with Bishop and Wild. Bishop and Wild. Yay, the series is just not possible without them, and it is not possible without all of you. So thank you for being here. And Junae is going to introduce Zaji.
So tonight is actually a special night. Jessica's super humble and doesn't want to toot her own horn. No, this is we have memoirists tonight.
Yeah,
essayists. This is a nonfiction extravaganza, and we're so excited to have Zaji and Matan and Jessica read tonight, because we usually kind of mix it up and have like a multi-genre, and so today feels special. Like we have a theme, and so Zaji is going to be our first reader. Zaji Cox, she, her, has been creating stories since she started reading at age 3, which is like crazy early. She is the author of the hybrid genre memoir Plums for Months, which was published by Forest Avenue Press in 2023, and has been invited to participate at several literary events in the Pacific Northwest, including the PDX Poetry Festival, Portland Book Festival, Moved by Words, New Voices of Color, the 50th Annual Northwest Folklife Festival, and more. In early 2020, she was the winner of the poetry category of Submission PDX's reading series. Her writing can be found in Cultural Daily, Care COVID Art Resource, Entropy Magazine, the Print Anthology 2020, The Year of the Asterisk, and others. She's also a dancer, which is very cool, with professional experience and enjoys combining art forms. Please help me welcome Zaji.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. Can everyone hear me, hopefully?
A little bit.
Yes, I probably should.
Just
So I'm
pull
not
right there.
crouching too awkwardly.
You don't have to twist it all.
Cool, okay. Yeah, so I'm super excited to be here in this building. I live really close, but I'm always walking past it and I've never actually been inside. So yeah, it's really cool to like see how neat it looks in here and like all the books and stuff as if it's a bookstore. But yeah, it's really cool to be in here and I'm really excited to like read at this series. I thought it always seemed really neat. So thank you both for having me. Yeah, so I was gonna read from my memoir, Plums for Months. I can't believe I have a book that is published by an actual publisher. Like I've self-published before, and they were books of fiction, but yeah, this is my like story of my childhood growing up in a 100-year-old house in Gresham. The house is no longer standing, unfortunately. It got taken down. I can't remember exactly when, but it was like over 10 years ago. But the stories that were created in that house by me and my mom and my sister, we were like the trio that lived in that house, and a bunch of black cats also. I just felt like those stories had to continue living on even though the house was gone. And yeah, and I also grew up doing like gymnastics, and my sister was my coach for a really long time, and she also did like taekwondo, and so she and I just like had a whole like very sportsy kind of connection going on there. So we were both very physically active at the same time. So yeah, we just had like a lot of that going on, and we also had like 2 black cats that lived in the house, and then we attracted a bunch of other black cats and stuff. So yeah, but that's the very long-winded backstory on this very short memoir that I have. But yeah, so I guess I can just start with one of the first pieces, which is a new almost home. The fir and cedar trees over Palmblad Road are towers under which a mother and 2 daughters drive to the house whose weight is rooted into the ground. Gravel shuffles under car tires, and the doors click and creak open to a world of cool, moist air. The trio emerges to marvel under a gray sky, so unlike the clear, hot desert air they left behind. The home owned by the mother's father stands waiting. Through the months that flow into years, the mother and daughters make a home of the weathered 110-year-old house that shelters mice and spiders among the 2 acres of property that are not theirs. Over time, objects accumulate in rooms to make the house feel like it belongs to the 3. College textbooks, family pictures, and framed artwork brought by the mother lean on downstairs shelves. In the mother's bedroom, picture books for the younger daughter lie on one side of the bed, and long text-heavy books for the mother lie on the other. The older daughter's room holds incense, CDs, magazine photos, and historical fiction novels. The younger daughter's room is decorated with toys and a rainbow of clothing in the nook of a closet. Books soon start to pile on one another. Her wolf bird transformer toy eventually finds its spot in the plastic toy container under the bed. Its legs don't fold in the way they should, but she sort of likes that this makes it unlike any other. As the rain of autumn becomes the rain of winter, the mother and older daughter keep the house warm with chopped firewood and the downstairs heater that sometimes works. Summer finally arrives to bring enough blackberries, blueberries, grapes, apples, and plums for months. Hands scrape past thorns and reach above tall branches to pick the very best fruits to cook with. The younger daughter helps cut back the invasion of blackberry bushes around the sides of the house, whose vines tap the windows. Her small hands curl around hedge clippers and reach as close to the roots as possible. With nimble fingers, she helps mend the broken downstairs window with plastic and tape. Some nights the 3 listen to the wind howl, the house creak, or the rain and wet tree branches thrum against the house, and continue to adjust to the new nature. They huddle closer in the living room, closer to their popcorn and movie and each other, and let the outside music play in the background.
Nice.
So we lived with 2 black cats, and they were our pets who we only kept inside. And we attracted a bunch of feral cats. They just happened to also be black cats. And so that just gave everything this like mystical, magical feeling. There was this one day we came home from the store, and we just saw like a collection of black cats randomly just hanging out there at the end of our driveway. I cannot explain why this happened, but it felt really cool to just see them all there. And excuse me for trying to find whichever page that was on, but yeah, hold on one second. You would think by this point in time I would have all my page numbers memorized, but I actually don't. Ooh, but first, I want to tell you about some other cats that we had. Sorry. very suspenseful. We had these two regular black cats come visit us. And so I'll read you the cats outside. The cats we seem to attract to our land are all black except for one. While we jump on our trampoline with its deteriorating ring of blue plastic, the duo hear us and approach. She is sleek, the gray of a fall noon sky with eyes deep ice blue. He is black as obsidian, as midnight, as the unexplored sea, with autumn leaf eyes. We conclude they must be brother and sister. My sister and I have different names for the cats. Hers are Ashurbanipal for the black one, and Tiglath Pleaser III for his sister. I choose Abercrombie and Fitch. Over time, the gray one comes less and less as we jump on the trampoline or play badminton or swing on the tire swing. Eventually, it is just Ash/Abby who comes to see us. We do not know why Tiglath/Fitch has stopped coming, but we miss her beautiful gray rippling pelt. But Ash/Abby stands on shoulders and goes, ah, instead of meow. Can't really make that sound super well, but it's a cat sound. He rises onto his hind legs when rubbing his head on a hand, and he can jump all the way from the ground to your chest to be held. Jerry and Neo, our cats inside, become jealous. The outside cats are a bonded pair, different as they are. Watching from the other side of the dining room window, I think our two can see the bond edging toward us. When we finally return inside, Jerry and Neo's affection doubles. We belong to them. I fully believe that cats can feel jealousy and possession. It's very true. There was also another cat who lived outside and was a regular visitor, and his name was Hunter, and I will tell you about it. There was another who came before our cat friends on thick, dark paws from the tangle of grasses. He was the first feral cat, also black, also from the unknown wild. Hunter walked on steps weighted with earth connection, each one leaving behind a note that resounded lower and deeper than most cats. He watched us from the tall grasses. He came when he felt like it. His fur was matted in patches, rough, smooth, and missing in places. Needle claws, a chipped front fang, blinks, slow and content by a waiting hand. He carried the aura of one who was there long before us and from a family who was there long before us. From a line extending perhaps even before the house itself. When he was gone, his footstep note lingered from the deep grasses and everywhere he had walked, so low and present that he wasn't really gone. He was a very cool cat. So this is the mystical story of a bunch of cats. I found it. It's called Congregation. My confirmation of a fairy tale life comes the day we interrupt a black cat meeting. Mundanity of a return trip from the grocery store dissolves in the midst of this mystical feline presence. They sit like little ink spots at the end of our gravel driveway as the three of us roll up in the car and we fall into a hush as if under a spell. Some latecomers are strolling in and they all face each other, calm and pacing, all swiveling heads and flicking tails. There are at least 10. I have never seen so many cats in one place before. This land, the property owned not by us but our mom's dad, with this 110-year-old house, the land that we have made into our home, suddenly feels like it belongs to another, someone not human. Our mom slows the car. We three watch from afar, trying desperately to preserve this moment. Time vanishes. The black cats could be talking about anything, sinewy in their motions and slow blinking as they look at one another, subtle yet confident. My mom and sister whisper from the front of the car while my reverence multiplies. I find that I'm holding my breath, worried about the inevitable grand moment when one sees us and alerts the others. A shock, jump, and urgent scatter. I will my mother and sister not to make a noise. And yet slowly they begin to disperse one by one, as if planned. I slowly let out my breath and my muscles relax. Don't go. They almost seem reluctant to leave. I imagine them planning their next meeting. Our only evidence is our word. That is a true story. How much time have I spent doing this? And do I have left?
I don't think we talked.
Cool. Take up too much time. Part of what inspired me to become a dancer, I do mostly ballet and contemporary dance right now, is my background in gymnastics. I was a competitive gymnast for about 7 years, from age like 7 to 14. And my sister was my coach for most of that time. And yeah, so a lot of that I expand on in this book because it was a very large part of my youth. So yeah, I'll just read a part, a piece that's a part of it. It's called Competition. Grips placed just right, holes around index and ring fingers, and dowel situated near the palm. Velcro wrapped around the wristbands just tight enough but not too tight. Get your chalk from the pile in the container and rub your hands together for just the right amount. Stand ready. Your teammates and sister coach are watching from the sides, eager. They can rely on you for a good uneven bar score. Watch the judge. You don't need to be reminded not to fidget. Being the uneven bars, it's one of the rare times you don't. Watch for his hand to lift and for him to say your name correctly, and a good luck wish. Raise your arms to present and step up to the mat. Face the bars. Bend the knees and swing the arms back to get a fluid motion as you jump to the low bar and begin the routine ingrained in your body. Engage the lats, traps, dorsi, abs for the kip. Let the momentum rotate you around the bar. Feel it rest against your hip, then cast to raise your body above and then to stand on the bar. Jump to high bar, engage the biceps and deltoids to bring yourself up, glide in a smooth rhythm while you circle your body around again. This one, it's one of your best executions. There is a hush. The area around you, including the crowd of parents, has gone quiet. You feel dozens of eyes on you, which has never happened before. Judges out of the corner of your vision are scribbling furiously while they keep their gaze trained on you, but don't get distracted. And as you feel the dozens of eyes on you and swing on high bar, preparing to release from the routine you are somehow executing so well, the familiar routine that today feels so unfamiliar, notice the astounded hush inside you, matching that of the crowd that may have uncovered a different you hidden. After the slap of your feet on the blue mat when you dismount, always over so quickly, under a minute, there's something like a breath before your team applauds, and the crowd like an audience. They keep clapping after you raise your arms to the judges again in the finishing salute and then go to sit down. Your score is a 9.825, the closest to a 10 you have ever gotten. Your shoulders, which you didn't even realize had been tense, relax. This different, unhidden you basks in the congratulating, the pleasure of pleasing your sister, and the sense of security in your teammates. She wants to go hiding again, but that's okay because you know where she lives, and we'll find her again. A lot of my attention to detail is mainly due to my being neurodivergent. That's actually a lot of what I write about in here too, is growing up as someone on the autism spectrum. And so a few of these pieces are about my experience growing up as someone who just sees and experiences the world differently from a lot of the other people my age, and just kind of noticing like, why do I, notice all of these random little like things like facial expressions, but then everyone else seems to like be conversing differently than me, and random little things like that. Or like, why am I so obsessed with this one exact song that I keep listening to on repeat, and then no one else seems to do that kind of thing? I don't know, stuff like that. But yeah, and so a lot of pieces in here kind of like acknowledge that and explore some things like that. There is one piece in here that really kind of expands on the sometimes agonizing experience of trying to analyze how people talk to each other. I will share it with you. It is called The Intricacies of Social Interaction. My sister has had so many friends, too many to count, and they are always nice. When we lived in Albuquerque, I remember laughing as one of them tossed me above his head, giving me that tickly, weightless sensation in my stomach. Once we moved to Gresham, she amassed a collection quickly from school and taekwondo and dance and everything else she's involved in that I have a hard time keeping track of. I even cried once because one was over at our house once, and he wanted to give me a hug before he left, but I was upstairs. It was just so kind of him because I'd only just met him that day, and how can people be so kind? My sister's room is like mine in that it's got all sorts of things stuck to the walls with tape and thumbtacks, posters and magazine pictures and art. Where she has The Matrix and Romeo and Juliet, I have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Corpse Bride. Where she has boy band pictures and Renaissance art, I've got Nickelodeon magazine covers and wobbly lined family scenes I drew in kindergarten. Where she has Polaroid photos from parties taped to her red and gold walls, I have 3rd through 5th grade class pictures with hearts around my friends' faces, as well as photos from my Albuquerque preschool classes. My face in one preschool photo, lowered and showing teeth but not quite smiling, is colored blue and angry, jagged marker lines. Nowadays, I shake my head when I look at it, recalling the spurt of anger I felt at my 4-year-old inability to smile on command like everyone else. I like to look at my sister's photos whenever I'm in her room, either sitting on her shiny, smooth comforter or leaning in her doorway when we talk. The photos of her and her friends are both in day and nighttime, and everyone's grinning with either their whole face or just their eyes. I like to look closely at the way they hold their bodies, the ease with which they sit or stand or have their arms raised, and I try to emulate that ease. I'm with my sister and her friends at a Thai restaurant after her taekwondo practice. In between bites, I'm observing and taking mental notes like usual. The lilt of their voices in casual speak, the rise of an eyebrow when making a joke, the blank look during a moment of sarcasm, how they sit, how they stand, how they gesture. I study people so often that I don't notice it, and I'm so involved in my surreptitious observations that I'm caught off guard when one of her friends turns to me. "So, Zaj," she takes a bite of noodles. "How's gym been going?" I reach into my mental inventory to all of the information I've gathered thus far about answering questions. This is it, a chance to be like them, like everyone else. And yet there's just so much information. I smile and feel my eyes dart around, shrugging, reverting. Good. My sister's friend nods. "Feel ready for your meet?" She's so nice, I think. I look at my sister. Eyes, there are so many eyes on me. My gaze flicks back to the spring rolls I have in front of me. I think so. Feeling daring, I raise my eyebrows and tilt my head and add, "I hope so." They're a kind of joke. I giggle and shrug, wondering why it's all so difficult. But they laugh, an easy laugh that I can join. I feel like I've won something, though I don't know what exactly. "No, you're definitely ready." My sister nods, and then they start discussing gymnastics practice. It's a conversation I take part in somewhat well, albeit minimally. Every time I look down at my plate, my hands somewhere safe, I try to relax my residual tenseness. Why is it so easy to slip into what's comfortable, to act like a child even though I'm at this point 13, to wait for someone else to speak for me? Why are things suddenly harder now that I'm older? Next time, I tell myself as I crunch on a spring roll, I can plan for next time. I can be brave and confident and easy like my sister and her friends. And I should try that kind of joke thing again. Thank you. It's always a fun experience trying to converse with people. I really love how nowadays, though, more people are talking more about the experience of being neurodivergent and how differently people view the world and talk to each other. And it's just nice to see that we're not alone. So I will read one last piece, if that sounds appropriate. Animals have always been a large part of my life. I volunteered at the Humane Society when I was a teenager. I currently work at the Humane Society as an adult, and I've always lived with animals. And yeah, so they are obviously a very large part of this book. On the cover, there are cats hidden in the little frame thingy. If you look really closely, you can see them. I won't try to show them to you because that would be silly. But yeah, so yeah, I'll just share a little bit about some of the feral dogs that I grew up hearing as I fell asleep at night. It's called Dusk Creatures. One distant bark becomes two, two become 10, and 10 become countless. As the sun sinks lower, I let the outside pack of dogs of the Gresham house howl me to sleep. On abundant summer nights after bike rides down the Springwater Corridor Trail, ice cream truck treats, and sprinkler games, I watch bat silhouettes against the sky and think about school. And I sleep over at Daddy's house in his faraway Portland home that always looks and smells new. The dogs are replaced by distant frogs, millions it seems, who croak their nonstop songs through the night among a backdrop of green. I think about the dogs singing the song of the old creaking house in Gresham. The night before my first ever gymnastics meet, floor and beam choreography run through my head in sync with the voices of the dogs. Anxious speculations of the unknown shoot up and around me like a jagged chorus. I never see the dogs except in my mind, dozens of ruffled pelts and raised snouts, grays and browns blending into a wild mass together and into the field beyond. Voices non-threatening but insistent, reminders of who claims what. Thanks.
Let's hear it one more time for Zaji. I have the pleasure of introducing Matan Gold, whose bio is very short. But we are so excited to hear the work. Matan Gold, him, Sia, is a Black and Filipinx writer from the San Fernando Valley. His essay, We Real Cool, was selected for the 2020 Best American Essays Notable list. His essay, Wade in the Water, was a finalist for Black Warrior Review's 2020 Nonfiction Prize. Please welcome Matan Gold.
Hey y'all, can y'all hear me? Yeah? Great, thank you, perfect. Microphones are very intimidating. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's really pretty outside. You're here inside, listening to me say words off a piece of paper. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Before I read, thank you to our hosts. Thank you to Bishop and Wild. Thank you to all the folks, the labor, both visible and invisible, that sets up readings and allows me to read to y'all. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna read y'all some new shit that I've been writing. Yeah, let's see how you feel about it. I've been working on this long piece that's made up of a series of essayettes. I'm gonna read some of those essayettes. They have titles. I think that's all you need to know. Burnt Cork. It's February 1843, New York City, big time, showtime, Big Ol' Apple. And 4 white men are playing and laughing and slopping burnt cork onto their faces, a pungent purple black tar into their faces, blacking up and cracking up as they ready themselves to take the stage as the Virginia Minstrels, the world's first all-black face minstrel troupe. And barking in front of the theater, come see our Negro, come have yourself a nigger good time. And let me tell you, the people, the citizens, them good Christians, new Americans, patron patriots, The We the People 1776 loved it. Ate it up like apple pie on the 4th of July with all the raisins in all of the salads. Extra mayo. I can't believe it's not real Negroes on the stage. Someone grabbed the Miracle Whip. Footnote 1. Early audiences to blackface minstrel performances believed themselves to be entertained by honest-to-goodness Negroes, so much so that the accompanying sheet music began illustrating actors in and out of costume. Minstrels joked that they were something akin to widows, only wearing black for a short time. A Union soldier once described black men in his barracks as looking, quote, exactly like our minstrels. And 1 year later, in 1844, the Ethiopian Serenaders, a rival blackface troupe, had the considerable honor of playing the White House. Footnote 2. Whites playing nigga, playing White House feels akin to the original 1940s Captain America comics, wherein our beloved Aryan patriot went to Germany to fight the Nazis prior to the US actually entering World War II to go to Germany to fight the Nazis. Sport and profit. Blackface minstrelsy was a form of white American theater, a variety show created in the urban North in the early 19th century. It was a theatrical practice of white-ass hands rubbing burnt cork into white-ass faces to caricature, that is to say, imagine blackness for ha-has and dollars. It was the most popular form of American entertainment for nearly a century. Goofy. I'd like to propose a lens in which to analyze white racialized imaginings and gestures of blackness. Blackface is racist, but it's a failure to solely view it as racist. Minstrels did not consider themselves racist, but rather race realists, actors reflecting a necessary caste system, patting us on our heads, we don't know any better. This is fucking goofy. Goofy, not only in the sense of something being ridiculous, but in the black sense, the way black people render the term. Goofy meaning embarrassing in specific relationship to white audacity, to white foolishness. Logic. Within the convoluted and insatiable logic of white supremacy, the way it tells on itself, lies on itself, and performs its own innocence, blackface minstrelsy, incredulously, was the first public acknowledgement that there was even such a thing as black culture, and not merely the simple habits of the almost human. Let us call this 3/5 logic. Brothers. Take the minstrel characters Brother Tambo and Brother Bones. Brother, B-R-U-D-D-E-R, because white people think that black people are stupid. They were simple, ignorant, and poorly spoken. They were the explicit comedic aspects of the show and were often the most popular and famous characters. Footnote 3. If children should be seen, not heard, then niggers should be laughed at and never seen. In the early 20th century white movie theaters, black comedies were allowed to be shown, but not black dramas. Y'all want our rhythm, but never our blues. Mop. P.T. Barnum and Bailey Circus, once had himself a fine white man who did a bit of blackface and danced himself a mighty nice Negro jig and brought in a pretty penny for the P.T. Cruiser Barnum empire. Said white performer eventually quit, figuring himself worthy of better employment. Barnum hit the streets looking for a replacement. Soon he found one, an even finer dancer. The only shame being the finer dancer was an actual Negro child. If only he'd managed to find a Fred Astaire, an Al Jolson, or a Channing Tatum, two of whom did actual blackface, and Channing got literally as humanly possible without blacking up. We all saw Step Up. It was a disaster. Fucking garbage movie, y'all. Trash. Barnum, unwilling to pass up such a fine dancer, but also sensitive to the stomach of his audiences. They did not want to watch a Negro, but whites in Negro face, felt his only choice was to smear grease and burnt cork upon the boy's face, paint the boy's lips a candy watermelon red, and place a ratty tangled mop upon the boy's head, and pass him off as a white child in blackface, the mental gymnastics of white supremacy. Barnum billed the boy as the champion nigger dancer of the world. Y'all remember in 2017 when they made that musical about Barnum, and then they got Wolverine to play him, and then that film grossed $345 million worldwide? I have not seen the movie because I'm a grown-ass man, but strange, I can't imagine that they didn't mention the champion nigger dancer of the world. I'm sure it was an oversight. Shine on him. William Henry Lane, better known by his stage name Master Juba, is widely considered the father of tap dancing. He was an early Black minstrel. I don't have time today to talk about Black minstrels, but Black people did put on blackface because that was the only way that Black people could earn a living if they wanted to be an actor or a dancer or a comedian or a singer. This is the cage that we are placed in. And he was the first to tour with an all-white minstrel troupe. He was widely known for his dance skills and for a particular routine wherein he would imitate the great white dancers and white dances of the day, only to end with his own dance, which would trump everything beforehand. Lane was that Black child smeared up by Barnum. This man got up on stage in front of audiences who rejected his very humanity to dance the dances of people with infinitely more power than he, who could and would extinguish his life with a whisper on a whim, and he fucked their shit up. Danced on their graves while they smiled and clapped. Piece of cake. The first act of a blackface minstrel show would often end with a cakewalk. Now, the original cakewalk was a dance competition originating on plantations where enslaved Black people would dress up in their finest to mock the mannerisms and dances of the Southern bourgeoisie. Couples would take turns performing, and whichever couple was deemed the most skilled would win an actual cake. At times, the cakewalk was even judged by the slave owners themselves, who of course were not in on the joke. While the dancing was satirical, it was not without skill. Black dancers would improvise with high kicks, twists, and shuffles. It wouldn't be a leap to suggest that Prince, Usher, Beyonce carry in this lineage. Now, the cakewalk within the blackface minstrel show, however, was unskilled buffoonery. The outfits donned were outrageous, impractical, patently impossible. And the joke was, look at this ridiculous, childish, and unsuccessful attempt at being white. White delusion brings us the idiom piece of cake, which white people began saying after witnessing blackface minstrel cakewalks, meaning something so simple that even a nigger could do it. It was a piece of cake. Imagine the confidence to read, to drag, to lay waste to a people who by law can murder, assault, breed you, and rip your families apart, and you are dancing on their graves, and then they give you a cake. So the next time that you hear someone say it was a piece of cake, y'all know how fucking goofy that phrase is. William Dorsey Swann, born into slavery, is this country's first self-identified drag queen. And in the late 19th century, after moving to DC and finding queer Black communities, Swann, known simply as the Queen, began hosting parties, calling them the House of Swan, wherein guests would arrive dressed to the nines in, quote, the finery of satin gowns, extravagant hats, shoes, gloves, and wigs, and they would dance and they would live. They would also perform cakewalks to be judged and prized. This House of Swan becomes the basis of modern ball culture. If you go to a ball, the performances are called walks for a reason. There are various categories, and there are various prizes to be won. Undefeated. People dancing through the resistance. And so before I leave y'all, I actually just want to leave you with some words that are not mine. But the final lines of Lucille Clifton's miraculous poem, Won't You Celebrate With Me? Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me has failed.
What the hell? That was amazing.
Performance.
Oh my God. That was a really cool experience. I'm gonna corner you upstairs and ask you a bazillion questions. That was so amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. How did that feel? So I'm sorry, I'm like cornering you right now. That was new stuff.
Yeah.
How did it feel to read it in front of them?
Yeah, y'all seem to like it.
You guys won't believe that I don't like talking in front of crowds, and I'm like, no. And here I go. I have more, because I get to introduce my dear Jessica. Probably most of y'all probably don't know our origin story. So this is how Constellation came to be. I met Jessica. When did you start PCC? I couldn't remember, like 2011? Okay. 2011 at Portland Community College. And I would only first see her, these like big, like offenses to the human soul, kind of like district-wide meetings. And I'd be like, that person seems cool, but I didn't know. And then Jessica got hired as a full-time weird ass position that PCC has, like a temporary. Anyway, some more like weird ass bureaucratic stuff. But I got to work with her a lot, and I was like, oh, she is cool. Like, this is somebody who's like not dramatic, doesn't mess around, like doesn't get involved in like the like chaotic politics, just like student-centered, so laser focused on the student experience, empowering students, like gently. So one thing I love about Jessica, she's real like gentle, but she's fierce. Like she's kind of quiet. She says it's your like Scandinavian like culture, but like she will like cut you, but not. She will gently but very firmly like nudge shit like into place, and you don't even know you're being like hurted. And like we're getting stuff done. So I just like fell in love with Jessica as a colleague, and we got to know each other as friends. She got pregnant, had kids. Like we got to like have these like parallel careers, and then I left your ass. Well, we actually like I was not super happy at PCC, and I decided to go down to part-time, and we like job shared. We worked on the same campus. Jessica and another writer, Blake Hausman, who's right here, a native writer, and Jessica started this thing called the Asian Pacific American Writers Series at PCC. Neither of them are Asian, but they had so many Asian students at the Southeast campus. They were like, we need to like, there is a gap that we need to fill, and we're gonna like stretch ourselves and make this shit happen for our students. So they created this beautiful series there, and I could just slide in, like I'm a real Asian person, so I'd be like, I like slide into their work, and just like they built this amazing structure. And anyway, I quit, and we stayed friends, and we would get together for coffee, quarterly. And a couple of years ago, it was the summer, we sat down for coffee, and we were just talking about life. And I was like, tell me what your goals are. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what's something that would like really like light you up. And she's like, oh, no, I've always kind of wanted to start a reading series. And I was like, And I was like, are you like, you really do, like, this is something you like want to do because it would be fun, or something like I want to do and I would actually really like to try to work on it. She was like, yeah, I would really like to try to work on it. Because we had so many great experiences working together at PCC for so many years, I was like, I'm in, do you want help? And so that is the beginning of Constellation. And just like at PCC, everything has been so easy and so wonderful and so much fun. Like this is just it's like such a bright spot in my life, and I hope that we're creating something that's a bright spot for the community. So that's the origin story and a little bit about Jessica, but also beyond she's just like a cool teacher, a cool person. She's an amazing writer.
She is.
Yeah, she's amazing. So her first chapbook in Absolutes We Seek Each Other was so good, and that came out when?
2014.
Yeah, 2014. And I don't really read poetry. Jessica turned me on to poetry, and I was like, oh my God, this is good. Maybe I like poetry. And then her last book of poetry, Metabolics, just came out last year. It's so good. I couldn't even read it because it was so good. I had to put it down for moments. I was like, it's too much. I have so many feelings. It was it's so good that it was almost overwhelming. And we're in for a treat tonight because she has a new book, and poets who can write down, poets who can do prose are they make magic. And so I've read excerpts, I've heard you read. Your book launch was a couple weeks ago. It's amazing stuff. So this is her new book. It's a memoir about growing up in a really strangely unique and isolated situation in mining towns, or not even mining tents. He lived in a tent. But anyway, it's beautiful and it's heart-wrenching and it's familial and intergenerational and about all sorts of wonderful things. So please join me in giving Jessica a round of applause.
I knew that was coming. If you ever have the honor of having June speak about you, it's really quite an experience. It's an honor to follow you, Zaji and Matan. And one thing I normally say in the intro to Constellation that I did not say, because I was nervous, is if this is your first time at Constellation, we hope you come back. That's what this is about. It's there's a rhythm to it. We keep the rhythm really regular, and we would love for you. We want to see you again. Okay, I'm going to read 3 pieces of metalwork. I think I have the order in which I want to read them. I think. No, I'm just changing my mind. Okay. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for being here as I read at my own series. It is my favorite room. Okay. 2020. Clementine and Paul at the long table. Their lovely wide foreheads, large eyes set wide, small ears tipped just a little outward. Soft spring light on the window sides of their faces. Paul picks a strawberry from the plate, chews quietly. Mom, do we have any sugar? He asks. Probably. Can I have some on this? It's fruit, honey. It's already sweet. I don't want them to be always imagining the sweeter. I want them to love what the earth grew just as it is. I want the ready sweetness I washed, sliced, and placed in front of them to be enough. They want and they need and they ask more than one body can answer. They give more than one body can hold. Their infinite intelligence, their infinite seeking, their infinite curiosity, Their, did you know, Mom? Did you know that a coconut is a fruit and not a nut at all? Their joy is bigger than any joy I can remember. Their sadness is the size of the whole house. Their occasional anger at a limit set or come against can spin the room. They long for infinite comfort. They want the sunrise-colored past before consciousness. Mom, they intone when they have sensed my concentration turning away from them, even if their father, kind and attentive and warm, is right there and available. Mom, upon arriving home before spilling out the day's events. Mom, the first word that comes to them at the end of a summer night when they've been up late and wild and they want it to go on forever. Mom, the person they seek after bedtime when the quiet floods their minds with hyper-specific fears and regrets. Mom, the word and the body between them and what they don't yet understand as oblivion. And what becomes of the grown human being who has to hold the vastness of children? The body stays present, but the person can't always withstand the constant pressure blurring the edge of self. In the dailiness of children, the suddenness of them, the endlessness of them, I peel off a consciousness and live in her. Not always. Sometimes with Paul's teary cheek on my dry cheek, his arms locked tight around my neck, his legs gripping my hips, all of me can be in unison with the child, his warmth and smell. Sometimes I can simply listen. Sometimes I can say, I'm sorry for the ways I have let my tiredness show. Who is standing here right now filling the sink with soap and hot water, wrapping a cut onion in an old plastic bag and nestling it in a fridge drawer? My body has faded into house tasks, chopping what will be this meal and then the next, wiping down the table and counter that will be dirty in an hour, putting away each object that will come out again, maintaining this handed-down domestic world that's supposed to make home. I'm living inside and unspoken elsewhere. I'm thinking about work, about people I know, about later and otherwise. I'm thinking about the story I've been trying to tell about our family. I'm forming words and not saying them. Paul is talking. He's looking up from a book he's too young for. Mom, I said, what is a Kafkaesque dream? I orient myself, decide how much to say. Mom, just a weird one. That's all it means. Silence, an unsatisfying answer. But why is it called that? Clementine has set her strawberry down, shifted her eyes toward the window, one leg curled up, the other swinging. She is 8 and already showing the here, not here quality that people called, at least as far back as my great-grandmother, reserve. This word means holding much of oneself back. Clementine, born first, a girl, a beloved self outside myself, arrived with open eyes. I struggle to find words that can hold us, to refashion the story I was given into something that can keep her whole so she won't have to hold so much back, to learn and relearn what it means to taste the sweetness that is here. For Clementine, and for the child I was before I grew into this blurred self, the child who early learned how to rise into her head when things got hard, a child uneasy in space and time.
Yeah.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit to the intro. Antecedents. Silver and gold have a price. At this writing, $24 and $1,936 per troy ounce, respectively. You can see how much gold has gone up. Silver conducts electricity and heat better than any element on Earth. Films glazed or studded with silver salts and exposed to light turn into pictures as the silver splits from chloride or bromide, becomes pure Ag, and darkens. Silver has antimicrobial properties. On 19th century wagon trains, settlers prevented illness by drinking from milk bottles that held silver coins. Highly reflective, silver powers solar panels and slicks the backs of mirrors. A silver bullet is a solution so effective it might not be real. And gold keeps its luster. It's unsullied by the air. Gold jewelry and bricks fill Dubai vending machines. Gold salts injected into synovial space soothe inflamed joints. Gold leafs buildings and covers chocolate and floats at the bottom of schnapps bottles and patches troubled teeth. In language, it replaces virtue and safety. You're golden, good as gold, golden boy, golden years. Metals come from mountains, where the still hardening rock once held metal-rich brines that heated and cooled, rose and receded, traveling through cracks, reacting all the way, and left behind silver, gold, copper, lead, and their alloys. Veins are one structure this process makes. They stretch into the hard formations, filling fissures. Their shape is often less like a tube and more like a hand, whole families of them like jagged sheets of paper laid through the mountains. This is the non-commodity shape of metal, embedded in its surroundings and existing for its own sake as part of the Earth's story. The plane that marks the difference between metal and non-metal is called the selvage, a word for the divide between the nature of the thing itself. The self-edge. As mountains weather, metal flakes away, runs with the rain, and collects in the slowest parts of a river. This is often the first way people take the metal out of the earth. They squat to sift the streams for what's visible, and when no more is visible, they dredge the river bottom. And when they've removed the river gold, they begin to tunnel. They crush rock to extract, first through physical and then chemical means, substances with unusual shine. I was born into my parents' restlessness and freedom seeking, arriving at a time when they were always on the move from mine to mine, encampment to encampment. In 1975, they started their married life together in Alaska's backcountry on a site they had to be flown into. In a place without roads, they were the only two people for many miles. My future father had a degree in mining engineering, but it was not an engineering job. They were making nominal improvements to a string of claims so the owner could keep his lease and deduct the small price of their labor from his taxes. Both my parents had grown up watching The Lone Ranger, Sergeant Preston, Sky King, and Bonanza in regular houses on regular streets in small Western cities. They were young and healthy, with only themselves to worry about. The remoteness, what they thought of as adventure, the possibility of a wild and free, quote unquote, good life, amid and in search of elements, was the point. In the first version of the world I understood, we didn't hold on to more than we could fit in a pickup. There were no other kids, seldom any women besides my mother. There were no parks, no libraries, no swimming pools, no play dates, no grocery store, no doctor, no babysitter. There was no telephone, no television, no movie theater, no gym, no extended family, no sidewalk. There were the same books over and over. There was inside, there was outside, there were miners, there was us. In the years to come, as metals prices rose and fell and mines went bust or became untenable or started up elsewhere, my father took on all kinds of mine work. He sought a degree of autonomy and wound up with increasing responsibility. He worked for bigger companies and smaller. He worked for himself and then for companies again. My mother's job was to follow. She set up camp, sourced parts when things broke down, ran errands, fetched water, and fed who needed feeding. When I was born, and then my brother, it was hard for her to leave camp, and so we endured together in improvised places not built for anyone's thriving. To grow up beside mines the way I did is to grow up inside a story without other stories to compete. It's a story that has room for men who get things done, for women who make do and ask for little, for children who ask for little and do not dream, for children content to grow into the narrow space their parents inhabit. It's a story about what has value. It's a story about what and who has consequence. It's a story made for profit, not for care. A story in which something better is always a little farther down the tunnel, over the hill, embedded in the next property. Can I do one more short? Okay, I got one more short. Ish. The business that mattered, with reference to my childhood, was the mine. And the mine was always out there, mysterious and mostly unimaginable. Mines were the deep why of our existence, but they were not the domain of a wife or child. We had a limited understanding of how they worked, even when Dad was working them. We almost never went near them, almost never went inside. Just a handful of times I've been in mines. Ones Dad worked that I can barely recall, and antique ones on elementary school field trips that I remember better. They were damp, and the rock smelled cold as we lurched along a small railroad inside a mountain. When we stopped, a headlamp shone on a wet wall where a vein stood out from the undifferentiated gray surrounding it. So much tunneling and infrastructure for a slightly shining strand. Seeing how the vein ran through the earth, the logic of mining seemed simple and severe. In terms of volume, it required the removal of so much for so little. In the TV series Deadwood, a small town transforms when the capitalist George Hearst arrives fresh from the Anaconda, understood in the series as in the historical record as a massive and brutal copper mining operation. A complex social life with characters and drama and particular language flattens under Hearst's single-minded pursuit of the element he refers to simply as the color. As if there were only one, as if the light of that one rendered the rest of life in grayscale. It's a simple thing, naming a measure, ascribing value to a substance, pounding shine into currency, a simple and consequential thing. Below ground, bodies bend to the hard fact of metal. Above ground, social life forms around its magnetic pull. In the mining world I knew, underground was the domain of men. Even their above ground talk came from underground or reached toward new properties on metal's imaginary horizon. The world above ground, house and home in whatever form, even the town, if one existed, was provisional and temporary. It was the domain of women and children oriented toward the unseen, unexperienced world below, paling against it in importance. We lived where a mine was or might be. We left when a mine no longer paid off. We arranged our days around the rhythms of mining. When the mine was small, my mother's job was making sure the mine and men had what they needed. She washed the mine off my father's clothes, fed the men he worked with, and in moments of desperation pleaded, rarely and mostly unsuccessfully, for more of his presence and concern to cohere around the family. I feel a kind of residual shame even noting this. To say it goes against an imperative that never had to be stated. Whatever disruptions the mine required were justified. If the mine was big, we would watch the line of pickup trucks come down the mountain at the end of the day shift. We lived with the mine's waste, a fine black sand called slag that dusted every road. But if the mine was but if the mine was big enough, it paid for the swimming pool, the library, scholarships. There is a sense in which the world above ground gave cover to the one below, an ostensible reason for existing. But the mine's actual reason for existing was whoever owned it, singly or collectively, and they were generally far from the scene. For them, the mine sufficiently productive and not too expensive was a wager, whether they were betting for or against. That's where I'm going to stop. I forgot to say, I can give $10 to Tamara for every book of mine or Zaji's that you buy tonight.
That was amazing. Oh my gosh, another round of applause for Jessica. For all of our readers tonight. A few announcements before we close out. One thing, please, if you can stick around, head upstairs after this reading, where it's a mask optional space, where we could share some food and some beverages with each other. The time you spend building relationships upstairs is just as important as the time we spend listening to each other's work. So please do that. Other things, please pick up books, copies of these books. And Jessica, thank you so much for offering to make sure that we're supporting someone with these proceeds. So please grab some books from Bishop and Wild. And Jessica and Zaji, your available sign things too. Cool. Yeah. Awesome, wonderful. And then Constellation is going on summer break for the month of July, but we'll be back in August. It is, if you don't have this on your calendar, August 15th, where we will get to hear Cecily Wong, Will Erickson, and Bishop and Wild's very own Melissa. Please don't miss that. So, now that's it. Thank you all so much for being here. Big part of this event. I got here. Oh my God.
This is for you. This is my number. I have to leave now. I have a program in the radio about autobiography, and I would like you to go to the radio. Okay. So call me and we can talk.
So that was very nice.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Or this way. Thank you. Sorry, all my friends.
pre-order, great
Thank you for being here.
Yes, yes, I'm glad we got out.
All right. Take care. Maybe for the summer. Maybe you're going to the summer.
Yeah, we're gonna go for August. Come back in September. Yes, please.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay, cool. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
I should have brought a pen.
Okay.
Let's get a